Hi everyone, and welcome to Kotaku's new discussion series, SplitScreen. I am Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and we're very glad that you're with us today. I'm sitting here in a very comfy chair in Portland, and Jason is in a sound studio in New York, and we're talking across the entire country via the magic of the internet. It's pretty cool, right, Jason?
Don't you wish that you had a sweet sound studio with giant foam padding behind you?
It's funny,
It's
I'm gonna get some foam padding, but I like having my classy books and all of my accoutrements here. It's sort of nice. I feel like it's nice and homey, but your studio does look pretty cool, I gotta say.
It is pretty cool. So this is, as Kotaku readers can tell, this is our first episode of SplitScreen. Excuse any technical hurdles or awkward moments we might run
Weird
into.
framing. If it happens, we'll get better as we go. We promise.
We will get better as we go. Promise. So we're gonna go experiment with a couple of things. We're gonna bring in some reader questions. We're gonna talk about some Metal Gear Solid. Should be fun. Should be good times all around.
Yeah, we're psyched. So our first topic of conversation is going to be, we're actually going to talk a little bit about streaming, YouTube, Let's Plays, and that whole thing. There's this big news story that I'm sure anybody reading Kotaku was sort of following. Well, big news story. It sort of wasn't a big news story, really. It was sort of silly late night drama. But Jimmy Kimmel got into this whole thing with people on YouTube by making fun of the idea of the Let's Play, basically. He talked a little bit about PewDiePie. He made a joke about how, I'm trying to remember what the joke was. It was like, when I was a kid, the only time you watched people play video games was when you were out of quarters. It's just like a very lame kind of a joke. And then they did a kind of a gag with watching people play, and then like watching people watch people play, and then watching God watch people play. It was silly. It was a pretty silly, I thought, segment. But it generated a lot of anger on YouTube, because everything on YouTube, I think, generates a lot of angry comments one way or another.
No. And, angry comments on YouTube?
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it?
Wow.
So, and then that, of course, prompted him to get Markiplier and another YouTuber to like kind of come onto the show and have these do a sort of apology tour where he got to sort of watch people play video games and sort of learn to understand it. And it was like a whole saga. So anyways, it kind of brought the subject of Let's Plays and YouTube and this whole thing, it brought it into focus for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it brings up some interesting questions, because obviously YouTube Let's Plays are super popular, and people love watching other people stream on Twitch and now on YouTube soon. So what is the appeal? What is Jimmy Kimmel right? I mean, should people really be watching other people play video games? What is the appeal, Kirk?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's funny because I think we watch video games in a different way than most people. So I've been doing this job long enough that you kind of, I lose track of it, but I definitely get why people would do it. When I do it, I love Let's Plays just because it's really nice sometimes to go watch. I always think back to a time when Lee Alexander and I watched Let's Play of Phantasmagoria 2, just like on her TV, which is like a pretty bad game, but also a really interesting game, and not really a game that I'd want to play again. But it was really fun. We were like sitting around and like having a drink and just watching Phantasmagoria 2, and it was really a cool experience.
Sitting around having a drink and watching Phantasmagoria 2. You are
do,
living the dream.
Right, basically living the dream. I remember kind of thinking at the time, this is the dream. I'm living the dream. I'm watching an old PC adventure game on TV while drinking in an apartment.
But hold on, so there aren't, I mean, video Let's Plays aren't the only types of Let's Plays. There are also screenshot Let's Plays, which I believe were made popular by the Something Awful forums, when people used to, and still do, post giant topics and forum threads about their adventures playing certain games with screenshots and funny captions. And then there's Twitch streaming, obviously. So there are a lot of different types of people, like Let's Plays. So this is obviously immensely popular.
Yeah, and it's funny, I think about this sometimes. I got really into, I don't know if you were into this at the same time as me, but so in the 2000s, sort of early 2000s, I was like working a day job and bored a lot, and I was reading a lot of TV recaps, which there was this site called Television Without Pity that used to exist and now is defunct, but they were amazing. It was like the heyday of Television Without Pity, where you could read like these really detailed 20-page recaps of every episode of like The OC or just some random TV show that was on, or American Idol. And it was fun because if you liked the show, you would then get to kind of go like, pick over the episode and get really into the ins and the outs of it. And it was like a fun way to kind of get more out of the media you'd already experienced. And I feel like in some way Let's Plays are similar to that, I guess.
I guess so, but some people watch Let's Plays of games they haven't played. I mean, sometimes you want to go and check out a game that you're like barely remembering and you want to see.
That's true. I mean, I guess I would read recaps of shows that I didn't watch sometimes too.
Oh, really?
So that was
well,
kind
that's
of
because you have a problem.
Right, I think it was. It was because the writer was funny, which I think is
Right.
kind of similar.
Right,
Like
that's also,
the person
yeah.
writing the recap is good. Where like I'll watch like people who really like PewDiePie, they'll watch PewDiePie play anything, and it's like they don't really care because they like him and they
Right.
like what he's
Right,
about.
right.
So it kind of makes sense. I mean, really, the Kimmel thing was so out of touch. I mean, there's so many
kids.
reasons that it's
Get
fun to
off
watch
my
video
lawn.
games that it's right. It's almost a silly talking point because he was so this like old man who has no idea what he's talking about, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I've spent a lot of time reading screenshot Let's Plays, just because like I remember an old JRPG and I want to revisit it in some way and see the whole story and whatnot, but I don't have the time to go and play it. So I might just skim through on like lparchive.org, which I think is the name of that one Let's Play site. And it's funny, I actually prefer reading Let's Plays to watching them just because it's so much faster. And watching them is so time consuming.
It's funny, that's similar to like when people complain about us doing more video stuff on the site.
Right.
People are like,
They're
I don't want to watch
yeah,
fucking
I don't
video,
have time
man.
for this. And I think,
just want to read,
it's an
just break
age
it down
thing.
for me.
I think it's an age
Yeah.
thing because today, if you're a teenager, you're a lot more accustomed to watching things and sitting there and watching YouTube videos all day, which is funny because you would think that teenagers would have shorter attention spans than us, but I think we might have shorter attention span than today's teens and early 20-somethings who.
Oh, that would be pretty
like to
funny.
watch
And
things.
but I know what you mean. I mean, I think there's definitely a really young audience for especially for YouTubers. Like that's like a whole group of people that like when you see people really hating on PewDiePie in our like Kotaku comments. If anybody writes about PewDiePie on Kotaku. Commenters go crazy, or no, they go crazy. There's just a lot of like, ugh, fuck this guy, I hate this guy, he's the worst. And you're like, well, okay, but there's definitely like millions of people out there who love him. Who are they? And it's mostly teens and like teen girls and people who, aren't necessarily the like existing video game demographic. So it's kind of like a broader thing that it's just some people that I feel like I don't fully understand their habits or what they're into because it's very different than what I'm into.
It's actually really cool. I do wonder how many teen girls and boys who wouldn't have been into video games normally are now into them because PewDiePie plays them.
I'm sure PewDiePie has helped spread the word. Yeah,
which is cool.
And he plays cool games too. Like he plays like I don't watch him regularly, but I've watched enough now just because you kind of have to know he's like a really big deal, to understand what he's doing. And I was watching some of his Let's Plays. And he plays like all kinds of stuff. Like it really is just runs the gamut. So people get to see just like weird indie games and like big action games and horror games. And he has a whole series on that game, Life is Strange, that are really fun to watch actually. Like because that game's kind of perfect for him. And like he's always reacting to everything that's happening in it. And yeah, they're fun. I feel like I wonder if Kimmel will maybe start watching video games now. I feel get into it. Yeah. You kind of see it. It only takes starting, right, to get into watching.
And then you're suddenly watching PewDiePie so you're sitting there watching PewDiePie videos at 2 a.m.
Right.
Bleary-eyed,
wondering what you've done with your life. Well, so there's streaming too. Right? So I feel like streaming is another thing we should talk about because you and I have both been streaming more. I think everybody at Kotaku has been streaming more.
Yeah,
we're kind of getting a sense of like. Yeah, we did a big Destiny stream that was super fun.
Kotaku Destiny.
Right, we took our boss through the Vault of Glass. So I think we've been getting a sense of both sides of it. Like I've been watching more streamers, especially I like watching Destiny PvP streamers. Like dudes who are just like Mr. Fruit and Triple Rec, like guys who are really, really good at PvP because it's just fun to watch someone be super good at a game that you play a lot, which I think is the appeal.
And it gets you better.
Well, it definitely gets you better. That's true. Like watching just strategies for maps that you already know is like a really good way to go. That's true.
Yeah, I remember back in a few years ago when I was really into StarCraft 2, I would watch the Day 9 TV, his daily show, every single morning with breakfast. I would watch it, and it made me such a better StarCraft player. So yeah, I mean, that's one good reason to watch these games that I bet Jimmy Kimmel hasn't thought about. Well,
because Jimmy Kimmel probably doesn't really care about getting better at Destiny PvP.
He's probably the type of person that if you said to him, that like some people make money off of video games, he would be like, no, people make money off video. No, that's impossible.
Crazy.
No.
Yeah, that's true. He does kind of seem like that would be his response. I mean, I wonder sometimes Twitch is is really big. Lots of people watch on Twitch, and I'm sure if YouTube gets their whole content ID thing figured out, people will be streaming a lot there too. I wonder how many people actually stream. Like I feel like maybe we should do a poll on Kotaku or something and ask, like, because I'm always curious. Like, we stream because we're like video game media people, and like it's pretty easy to get viewers. We can put it on Kotaku. Like, it's sort of a thing that we do. Is like we talk about video games for a living. But I always wonder, like, if normal people also just stream, and I think they do. Like, by normal people, I mean people who don't write about video games for a living or like work in video games, who just kind of are gamers, right?
Are you saying
like,
that we're not normal people?
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think most people are normal in one way or another, I guess.
Okay, fair.
But you know what I'm asking? Like, if just your average gamer ever streams, and I'd imagine that I think we might actually be surprised by how many people stream.
Yeah,
but
of course. I mean,
really
our buddies, our Destiny buddies, Todd and Unstable, and a couple of the other folks that we've played with from the Destiny community all play and stream.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call them normal. Maybe nobody's normal. Maybe that's the answer. Like, because
no
they're also like
video
really
games
hard
is
into
normal.
Destiny, and like Unstable is totally amazing and like streams all the time.
Right.
And then like Todd does the podcast about Destiny, and they have a whole group, so like they stream. But so yeah, I guess like everybody who plays games is into it in that kind of social way and wants to share it. But
yeah,
it's definitely cool. Like, playing with a stream is cool, I think.
It is cool. It's always fun to have that sort of interactive component. And I think a lot of people are probably looking, like right now, as we speak, I bet there are plenty of people looking for Metal Gear Solid streams to help fill the day while they're at work before they can go home and play more Metal Gear Solid. So yeah, I mean, that thing, there's always something really interesting and fun about catching something live. And the other night I was watching someone speedrun Final Fantasy IV, and he kept having to reset it. Like, he had to reset it 2 or 3 times, and so, but I just had it on like in the background. I was doing a couple other things and I just left it running.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that a lot with streams, like leaving it sort of just on the background, especially with classic games and like, you know, like any kind of speed run or like those things, because you can sort of tell when stuff starts to get heated, and then you can tune back into it. But like just sort of leaving it running on the side while you're doing something else. It's definitely
and it's like live TV where you leave it on because it's live, and like you can't. It's not like watching YouTube is a totally different experience than watching a live stream or a live television broadcast. At least for me, because I don't want to. You can't pause it, and you're kind of caught in the energy of the moment. And there's something always thrilling about capturing something live in a way that it isn't there when you're watching like a PewDiePie recording something on YouTube or whatever.
Right. Well, and it's almost, I mean, when you get into like pro sports, I mean, that's like, I've gone to bars and watched StarCraft at a bar. Like, that's just like watching live sports. Like, and that's the thing where like,
a loser.
Yeah. No, I did it on a Kotaku assignment. It was before I worked here. It was it was like my first assignment in the field. Steven was like, all right, go to this bar in San Francisco and write about it. It's probably still on the site somewhere. So it was starry-eyed and enthusiastic. Yeah, people were into it. It was fun. It was cool. But that, yeah, I mean, like watching a live, like competitive gaming thing is just no different than watching sports. Like, if like when the International was going on, you were watching Twitter and like, like I didn't know what was happening, so my Twitter feed would just be like ridiculous gibberish that I couldn't follow.
Which is kind of similar. The Dark Queen has captured the lane of the Garbledy-Gar. And
but everyone's excited who's watching it, and I'm sure it's not that different from like when we're watching NFL or something, and people are like being like, "Yes, what a pass!" and like you don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I guess not.
Well, but yeah, so I think we've pretty safely established that that Twitch and YouTube aren't going anywhere, and Jimmy Kimmel is wrong.
Yes, Kimmel. So Kirk, you've been playing Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, speaking of games that are good for streaming, I have been playing it.
Which I was streaming that last week. I got a fair number of viewers watching that game, that old game.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of Metal Gear Solid 5.
I think it's really good, man. I think it's really good. When it's my jam, like in terms of like the type of video game that I'm into, it's super my jam. Like really systems-based stealth game that's all about basically going up to outposts and marking dudes and taking them out. Like, it's a really good game. Yeah, I'm really into it. I mean, yeah, I think it's great.
And it's the type of thing where like as you're going through each outpost, you're discovering new things that you can do. Like sliding down hills with cardboard boxes. Yeah,
well, it's such a good game for the internet, right? Like, I feel like, like I've had so many moments of individual discovery within the game where I figured out, like I wrote this post last week about how I figured out that you can be quiet by like dropping a supply crate on her. And like, but I feel like there's so many things like that I don't know how to do yet, because I have kind of settled into like routine with it, I guess, like where I generally use the same approach each time. I'd like take guys out quietly. I have a like tranquilizer sniper rifle. Quiet has a snipe like trank, and like I Fulton guys out, and it's kind of like the same approach to each level. But you can do so many crazy things. Like that box stuff is just ridiculous, and I never use the box. Like I haven't upgraded the box. Did you use the box when you played?
No, barely. I mean, a lot of my rhythm was just like figure out exactly where each guard is in an outpost, and then sneak around and take him out from behind, and then if I get caught, immediately kill myself and try again, which is probably why I spent 94 hours playing the game.
I mean, I kind of feel like I just feel like I should be experimenting more, I guess, but I probably will. It feels like a game that I can see myself playing for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Far Cry is kind of similar to that for me, but this is so much more. There's so much stacked on top of it, and it goes in so many different directions that like any given encounter, I just feel like I could screw around with it forever. Like I felt that way with Ground Zeroes even. Like there was like people complained that game didn't have enough value, but for me, I think for some players it didn't, but for me, I just was like I would spend like 10 minutes just dicking around with like 3 guards trying to make them do weird things and like just screwing with the game. So it's really rewarding in that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, wasn't Ground Zeroes like $40 though? I mean,
was it? No. If it was $40, that's way too much.
Was it? I don't know. It was.
I can't remember. I mean, whatever they charged for it was probably too much money. It was too much money, especially when you play Phantom Pain and you're like, oh, okay, so like Ground Zeroes was just a level, like one like tiny outpost, basically. Like there are a million in Phantom Pain. It's
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really pretty ridiculous.
But I almost wish Phantom Pain like didn't even have a story, didn't bother with a story, and they put all of their resources into making new locations and like new outposts and just like forget all those cutscenes, because I mean the cutscenes are cool and all and directed well, but the story is so like ultimately unsatisfying.
Yeah, it's weird. I definitely like, so I remember editing your review and I wasn't sure what you meant by when you were like, it's too bad it's not finished, because now I've played probably like 40 to 50 hours of it, and how far are you? So I just beat last night Mission 29, which is the like infamous terrible airfield mission where you're fighting the skulls on the airfield.
Did you do it the same way you did?
I did, and then I was looking up ways to do it. There's a bunch of ways to beat her. I might do a post about it. Like you can get in the mech, like in the the mech buddy with the Gatling gun apparently, and just melt them. Like, and there are ways to do it. But yeah, I had Quiet just kill them. It took like 40 minutes or something, and I just had to keep having her like move so she could get the angle on them, and I was just hiding the whole time. It was so stupid. Yeah. But so I just got past that. So before that was like the section where the skull like chick snipers turn up in that valley, which I actually snuck through without being spotted once.
Really?
Yeah, like I just ghosted it, which I apparently that's a really hard fight, but I felt really cool afterward. I was looking it up and people were like, oh, that part is a nightmare. And I was like, oh, I just
Well, some people do it as a sniper battle. And they actually fight them all.
But I do kind of want to go back and try that. But so I agree with what you're saying about the story generally. Nothing matters. Like there are times where like story events happen. Like I liked when everybody was sick.
Nothing matters. Metal Gear Solid 5, nothing matters.
Like I'm actually doing it. Like I remember people being like, "Oh, I can't tell what's happening." I'm following the story pretty well. Like I've been listening to all the tapes. It's not that complicated. Like when the bad guy's name is Skullface, like how complicated can it really be, right?
Well, I mean, no, it's not that it's super complicated. Not like other Metal Gear games, but at some certain point, like, do you know why Ocelot is on your team?
No, I mean in terms of the lore, no, right?
Right.
But like just in terms of like the meat and potatoes story,
right? The story itself is like, yes, here's what Skullface is doing.
Right.
This is, although it's never really. Well, I don't want to spoil things.
That's fine. Yeah, don't spoil.
You're about the mission you're gonna play after this one.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's called Skullface.
It is, yeah. It's like go take revenge on him or whatever. So
right.
Like,
so that's one where he'll explain himself, and we'll have to revisit whether you're satisfied by his explanation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm already not satisfied by the story just because, like, for me, like one of the main things that a story needs to have is characters that make sense, and none of these characters make any sense at all. None of them are even people. Like, first off, like the main motivation for the whole game is like the stupidest thing. Like it's like they want revenge. Like seriously, like that's like it. And what they want revenge because like Skullface blew up Mother Base, but like that's not also like a super awesome thing to be that mad about. Like I feel like it's just not like it doesn't make sense. Like all their talk of like trying to make the world a safer place by like giving nukes to everyone or not giving nukes, it's all so confusing, and like motivation just doesn't make sense. And I'm kind of
well, you do have to at least be familiar with what happened in Peace Walker and
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid 3.
but that also didn't make that much sense, I
No,
guess. Like, I mean,
no,
it's
it
like,
none
but
of
it's definitely a problem when like
Well,
the main motivation for the main characters just is like
It's
leaves me
convoluted
totally
and
flat.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that don't really work when you really think about them, but the main idea is that the boss in Metal Gear Solid 3 had this vision of like a nation without borders and unifying the world, and then all these different people are trying to fulfill her mission in different ways, including your main character, Venom Snake, and Miller and Ocelot. Ocelot is the one that always gets me because, like, first of all, in this game, he feels like a totally different character. Like, I don't know if you remember Ocelot from the other games,
Yeah, no, definitely.
but he's like, he's the dude who's like meowing and like doing all this
being
weird
ridiculous.
shit.
Well, and there's also this challenge with me anyway, where Kaz and Ocelot, Troy Baker, it's Troy Baker and what's the other guy's name? He's also like really well known. He played Batman, and I'm forgetting his name. He's good, but they're both very good, very pro voice actors who sound like that guy. Like they sound like the pro voice actor guy, and I can't tell them apart half the time. Like when they're on the radio, like because I don't have subtitles on. I'm like, I don't know who's talking. Like, and honestly, even Kiefer sometimes sounds like them. So all three of them sound the same, and I'm like, and they're kind of indistinguishable, like personality-wise. Like I get that Ocelot is maybe more chill, which is weird given what I know of Ocelot, and Kaz is like kind of hardcore and doesn't like quiet. But then, like I can't just, so I'm like, I don't know. Like it's like three guys who all sound the same, talking about random bullshit. And yeah, I agree with you that like, it makes me think, it makes you think, it almost feels to me like the game was designed as this amazing sandbox with all these cool tools you can do and all this cool shit you can do that's just super flexible. And then like, the story stuff was like just separate, and that was the stuff they didn't finish because of like drama with Kojima leaving and like with all of that. For whatever reason, that stuff feels just undercooked. Like, even though some of the cutscenes are really cool, like it's just
they are.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you haven't even gotten. We'll talk more later. Maybe in the next episode of Split Screen, we'll talk more about the actual ending and like.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Parts
So
they left
maybe
out.
Do a spoiler.
Because as you saw, there's a mission that got totally cut out of the final game, and that should have been the actual ending to the game. There are two characters who just like go totally unexplained, and their fates are they just drop off the face of the game, which is too bad. But no, I totally get what you're saying, and it's really a fatal flaw that you can't. That like listening to the tapes is such a chore because you'll be listening to the tapes and suddenly Miller will start barking about how you need to go find this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I literally like
the black carrot is an ancestor of the domestic carrot.
I'll put on, so I listen to tapes in the helicopter, but I have wireless headphones, so I literally will put a tape, because you know how it just plays like 4 in a row? I'll just put the first one on and then just take my wireless headphones and like go do the dishes like while I'm listening to them talk. Because
like
I just
podcast.
can't focus, and you know me, I'm like not a great multitasker, like I can't focus on, even if I'm just going through menus or assigning dudes, like if they're usually talking about something kind of weird and like, but there is a lot of like explanation for what's going on. But I just can't, like, I can't keep up, so I just will do some, like, menial task while I listen. But, right, that's not really, like, when you've resorted to that to deliver exposition for, like, crucial exposition for your story, you're kind of, like, already in the weeds.
Yeah, but, no, I don't mind that because they had Codex before, and this is way better than Codex.
Oh, sure.
But, yeah, it's really unbelievable that they just didn't design it so that if you heard other things, it would pause the tape while you're listening to other things, and then it would go back seamlessly. It's really
it's one of those like little things that is actually a big thing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. So we've been talking about a game that has no clear character motivations and really just terrible characters in general. Now let's talk about a game with the best characters in RPG history. Final Fantasy. Which Final Fantasy is it, Kirk?
Well, technically it's 2 Final Fantasies, which is something I know because I am now an elite Final Fantasy expert. But it is Final Fantasy VI, a.k.a. Final Fantasy III, which you and I played together when you were visiting in Portland a couple weeks ago now, which seems like it just happened, but I guess it was a couple weeks ago.
It was a couple weeks ago, and so I played it dozens of times. You were playing it for the first time ever. We played about 9 hours, 10 hours on stream. And where do we leave off? We got you all the way through the beginning portions.
Right. So we went through the Opera House, I guess. The Opera House was sort of, which is longer than just the Opera House. It kind of it overflows to the town full of poor people who lie, right? And there's like, I need to come back to it. I've been
No,
playing
your
too many other
memory-
video
your
games. I'm
memory is
forgetting what
totally
happens.
off. No, that was before the Opera House.
Oh, okay. What was after the Opera House?
After the Opera House, you get the airship. You're on board with Setzer. You can't control the airship, but you fly to the continent with the Empire's main castle, which is Vector. And then we went in there. We went into the Magitech research facility, and you got some.
Oh,
Magicite.
right. And we had to do the whole thing where we were trying to escape and fight that boss that kept killing me. That was when I was kind of exhausted. I remember I was
you were
getting
on the
grumpy.
train. You were on
I was
the
getting
train.
grumpy because I was actually getting my ass kicked, and yeah. Okay, so I remember all that. Yeah, so that's kind of a lot of the game, right? How much of the game would you say that is that we played?
25%? No,
Wow.
more than that.
Yeah.
30%, I would say. 30%.
It feels like, so it took us, we did one marathon 6-hour stream and then a shorter 3-hour stream, which is still pretty long. And we were going really fast because I had you at my side sort of being like,
Right.
okay, go here, do you want to know how to go here? And I was happy to have that. I feel like if I had been playing it on my own, I mean, it would have taken me, especially if I didn't have the internet, like if I were a kid playing this game for the first time, it would have taken me easily double what it took us to get
way
through.
longer.
Or
Yeah,
more,
I mean,
like,
part of the appeal. Well, back in the day, I mean, when people like me were growing up, we were still prepubescent. And
people
playing
like
these
you,
games.
JRPG fans like you.
Exactly. This was it was the type of thing where you'd get one game for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, and that would be your game for the next few months. So I played this game all the time, and I just like got to know it really well, and I would replay it and play it over and over again. Sometimes I would like get stuck on a part in one of these RPGs and then just start from the beginning, so I like would get to know the intro scenes over and over again. But anyway, so I was always attached to it, and it was always one of my favorite games ever, just because it emotionally resonated with me so much. But
Well, I mean, and
as a first-time player, I'm curious.
I feel
to
like
hear.
it's resonating with me because it resonated with you. Like a lot of my JRPG playing is now dictated by Jason
By
Schreier,
what I tell you,
Kotaku
right.
news editor,
Right.
who says you need to play this, you need to play this. Like I felt like when you were visiting, we were joking about this, but it wasn't actually a joke because like that I would wake up and you would be sitting there with my Vita saying, "Why aren't you playing Suikoden 2, Kirk? Play right now. Here, play." Like I'd wake up and you'd just be playing it, like in front
Yeah,
of
I
my
can't believe
face.
you haven't played any more of that game.
Well, I haven't had time. There's so many games to play. Plus, I had 10 hours of Final Fantasy VI to play.
Whatever, man. Anyway, so let's talk. So tell me what you think of Final Fantasy VI.
I liked it a lot. I've played a fair number of Final Fantasy games at this point. I'm actually not some total JRPG noob or anything. I played all the way through 7 in a similar situation with Lee Alexander, who we wrote some cool letters about it, and that was sort of what got me into this idea of doing like veteran newbie playthrough of these classic games, which I think has kind of now become a common format for that, which is nice because you've got someone to talk to who gets it and knows all the tricks, but you're a fresh pair of eyes, which nobody has a fresh pair of eyes about games like Final Fantasy VI anymore because it's so enshrined, I guess. So going into it, I'm already colored by a lot of that, I guess, but I liked it. I mean, I really liked it. It's a really charming game. It's got beautiful music, which I think you've talked about, and it's actually really lovely looking. I think it looks a lot better than Final Fantasy VII. It holds up, It looks like a nice Super Nintendo game, which is
Yeah, the 2D
a
is
nice
way
look.
better than the 3D. Even back then, we thought Final Fantasy VII. I mean, the CGI stuff looked great, but even then, it was like, oh, these characters have blocks for arms.
Right. Well, like weird round heads. So
Yeah.
and so I wonder if at the time was it seen as a sort of technologically advanced game when it came out, or was it just pretty run of the mill?
6?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the Mode 7 stuff was always seen as like really cool and interesting, but I think that was around the time when all the console makers were ramping up for the PlayStation /
Right.
N64 eras, and
Right.
also Donkey Kong Country, from what I remember, was seen as the most technologically advanced game on the Super Nintendo. Like,
Yeah, I actually
people looked
remember
at
that, even though I didn't have a Super Nintendo, but I remember everyone talking about how great that game looked.
Yeah, and that was around the same time, I believe. It might have
That
been a
makes
difference
sense,
of 1 or 2 years. Final Fantasy was 94. Donkey Kong Country, I think, was 96. I'm not 100% sure, but it was all around the same time. So no, it wasn't really seen as, it was seen as a beautiful game, yeah, and a lot of people were blown away by the story and the scope.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I kept pointing out to you as we streamed it is that like the way the camera moves, even the way that it like slowly pans across Figaro Castle when you're seeing that flashback of Edgar and Sabin.
Right.
That was so innovative for the time. It was so much different than any other game.
And it's funny, isn't it funny how like so you're talking about the Mode 7 stuff, which is the like cheesy looking 3D graphics.
Yeah.
It's funny how the thing, if that was the thing people were impressed with, it's always the thing that people were impressed with that looks shitty now.
That looks the worst
where everything
today.
about the game that was run of the mill looks great now. Like
Yeah.
it's very true. Like that. It's like in Fantasia 2000, like the CGI animation and that looks like shit. Where the hand drawn stuff looks amazing. Like it's very like that thing. I feel like that's always going to be true forever. Like as long as anyway, that's a tangent. But anyway,
So who's your favorite character?
Oh, that's tough, man. I guess Celeste is probably my favorite character.
She's
pretty
badass.
cool. She gets to do a lot of different things, I guess, like in that first part. And then Sabin rules because Sabin suplexed the train, and I got to watch him suplex the train.
And he's such a moron. He's like, why are they singing at the opera house?
Well, and it's funny that he's supposed to be this guy who went and trained as a martial artist, but he looks like Guile, so he looks kind of like Jean-Claude Van Damme or something, like, or at least his little character does.
Yeah, his little sprite.
But I really like him, and like just that trick with combat where you have to like enter his moves and remember it. It's funny. I feel like the combat is something that I don't have my head around because we went through it so quickly. I didn't have time to just grind out a million fights and get really good at like when I play Final Fantasy VII now, I move so quickly through like all the menus because I just know where everything is. And I was watching you play 6, and you do the same thing. You're like, you know right where everything is and who's coming next and how to like quickly scan the thing. And I was like not there at all. So Sabin would come around and I'm like, okay, right, down, over, down. Shit, I got it wrong. Meanwhile, they're
that
like
was actually
killing
the
all
only
my
part you
dudes.
were good at was the entering blitzes.
Ouch! That was the only part. I thought I was also good. I was good at following the story. I was good at appreciating the music.
Orders. So it's funny. I mean, so those people who are listening to this and watching this probably are very familiar with the whole story of Final Fantasy VI, but you are not. Like, you have no idea what happens next. Do you have any like feasible? Like, do you have any notion of
so
what might
here's
happen?
what I know. Well, so I always thought going into it, I thought the opera house was like a big thing that ended with like a really sad, horrible thing. I didn't know that it was just this thing that happened kind of early on and was mostly silly and fun. I thought that Kefka was a good guy and then betrayed everybody at the end. Okay. But I know, like, I feel like I know there's some big betrayal. I think I know that Terra dies, or I'm pretty sure she dies somehow, and something really bad happens. Like, there's some huge fucked up thing that like blew everybody away, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not really, I don't know what it is. And I know Kefka does something awful because everyone's always like, oh, he's the worst villain because he did all this horrible shit. So I know that Kefka sucks, but I don't know anything else past that, I guess.
I wish I was still in Portland and we could go through the whole second half of the game because I really want to see how you'll
it'd be fun.
to that.
We should try to figure out a way. We'll see if there's some feasible way that we can,
Yeah, we can Skype and
I can stream it. Yeah, you can Skype into the stream or something like that. Because it was definitely fun. It would be fun to play by myself, but it was really fun to play it with you. Just like, I don't know, it's actually funny, like to our other conversation about watching video games. It's like all tied up in that same thing of like sharing games in a lot of different ways. Like streaming it with experts is fun. Like I've found that with a lot of old games where people tune into your stream and they know what to do. And then like you were like a live version of the chat where you knew everything. Could just tell me stuff. So I thought that was like a really cool way to play it.
I mean, as a kid, I did that all the time. Like we'd have I'd have friends over, and we would sit there and play through games like Final Fantasy VI together.
Well, and I would actually do that. It's funny. I would do that as a kid. I would go because I didn't have my parents wouldn't let me have set-top consoles growing up. So I would go over to like my friend Brian's house, and he would have The Secret of Mana or something, and we would play that, and I would just watch him play because I didn't know how to play, and like I was only there for the night or for the evening, and it was kind of a similar thing of like watching him play through that game.
Okay, well, so that is Final Fantasy VI. I mean,
hot new game. It's a hot new game that we recommend.
It's a hot new game.
It's a Kotaku, yes.
Still holds up today. It does not surprise me that game still holds up so well today.
Yeah, it really does. It especially just. It holds up better than 7, really, visually. Like, it really is like a lovely looking game. I wish it were on 3DS. I wish I could play it on 3DS.
Right? It's really a shame that the only way to play it on modern platforms is iOS, which is like a totally deformed,
Right.
screwed up
and
version.
And there's the other version that you can play on Vita, right? The PlayStation version, but
Oh,
apparently
right.
that's
Yeah,
the
but
inferior version.
The loading times in that version are just so
I've heard
horrible.
people say the loading times aren't that bad, but I haven't seen them, so.
I don't know, from what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, so we should move on to some reader questions, shall we? So now we are going to move to the section of Split Screen that we are calling Reader Questions.
It's a really innovative name that we've come up with for this for this section. Really exciting new idea.
Exciting, yes. So we got a couple of questions from Kotaku readers. I'm going to read the first one. So Kotaku reader 100 Cups of Coffee asks, "Hi, Kirk and Jason, here are my questions. Each of you is appointed to be the lead director of the next 3 installments of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Budgets are the typical $150 million. What would you change about the games? How would they evolve? What time periods and locations would you choose? Would you keep multiplayer? What would you prioritize? In other words, what is your, and I think we should each do one maybe to keep this shorter. What is your perfect Assassin's Creed game, Kirk?"
Okay. Well, I have played a lot of Assassin's Creed, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. I think, so my ideal setting would be in like feudal China. I think that'd be super cool.
Isn't there already one in feudal China, like one of the side
it's
ones?
but like it's not a like full. It's the Assassin's Creed China is there, but I mean like a fully fleshed one where you're playing what's her name, the assassin chick who's in the one video or the movie with Ezio, and
what's
and in
her
that
name?
game,
The assassin chick.
You know,
Okay.
what's her name? The assassin chick, right?
Okay.
The official, it's her official
Fair.
name. I
Hey,
think.
you're in charge. It's your perfect.
But I think it would be
Assassin's
really
Creed.
cool. I think that'd be a cool setting. I can just imagine what that game would look like. It would almost, the whole setting would like, you know what it would look like. It'd be that like iconic moonlit night, infiltrating a castle, you know, and like they could kind of refresh the combat engine and kind of have a more martial arts focus, which would be really cool. And like I could see that being a really neat game. And it just would be a part of the world they haven't gone to. So I would be really into that. Yeah, so I think that'd be cool. And I'd also actually
What would
like
be
to
different
see
about
them. I'd like to see them refresh the future timeline stuff and like make that work a little bit better. This is me as the creative director saying what I'd like to see. So I guess I would hire a writer who could come in and tell me how to do that because I don't know quite what the answer is. But yeah, I think that it needs to be refreshed. Like they've gone too far in kind of getting rid of it now. So yeah, I'd like some middle ground between how twisty and weird it got toward the end of the Desmond stuff, you know, to something that's still involved and still kind of cool there. So that would be my ideal Assassin's Creed game. How about you?
So, okay, my Assassin's Creed game would be a JRPG, and it would be turn-based. No, I'm just kidding. That's the classic Kotaku humor.
I figured I thought you were serious. I figured you were really going somewhere with this.
No, I mean, I should really answer the question. Otherwise, my answer to everything would just be JRPG.
Right.
I think, okay, so get this. So think about an Assassin's Creed game that's set way back in biblical times, and you actually have to play through like biblical stories. Like you go see Noah and help him build his ark, and like you go meet Moses and see the burning
I feel like
bush.
that would take, you know how there's that
Help free the
disclaimer at the
sleeves.
beginning of every
Right.
Assassin's Creed game that's
Right.
like, this was made by a multi-ethnic like group. They would need to be like, but seriously, seriously.
For real.
It really was. Like, please don't get angry at us about this. That'd be cool though.
That
I
would be
think.
the problem. Ubisoft is such a like sterile studio that they would never ever do anything like that.
Well, in some
for
ways,
fear
right?
that it
But in
might
some
offend
ways, they're
people.
not. I mean, like even the original Assassin's Creed has some interesting stuff with like the Crusades and the whole like. They're such
Sure.
a sterile studio, but they also are willing to take these weird creative risks.
That's
It
true.
actually wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility. I could see that. I think it'd be rad. Like they'd probably do an interesting job with it. Like kind of a mixture of the actual history of like biblical stuff. Like
Right, and then
that
a
whole
new
time
story
period.
with assassins and Templars.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
how that all
I'd
infuse
be play
there.
that. Yeah,
that'd be interesting, right?
And going farther back seems like it's an interesting, you know, like I don't know, they're getting so into. We'll see how this one is. I
Into
guess
modern
this
times,
year's,
right,
but,
right,
like,
right.
it's
They're
getting
moving
so
too-
modern
too
that it's
far
almost
ahead.
like right. Throw it
I
back.
think
a
it's
little
because
bit.
they want to have guns and stuff.
Right. But then again, the series like sucks at guns. It's never been
Right.
good at guns, so it's
Right.
like whatever. You don't need guns. Like just
Right.
throw it, go back, or just get creative. Like have some inventor come up with another crossbow, even though there were no crossbows then. Like no one really cares. Like if it's fun, if it's fun to play.
But yeah, I mean, and then my other answer is take a break from Assassin's Creed
Right.
for
Take
like
a year.
2 years.
Take a
Let's
year.
take
Take 2 years.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. Reimagine
so-
some of this stuff. Fix the controls.
Should we move on to the final
Yes,
question?
our
And by the
second
way,
question.
we'll open up a forum for sending us questions for the
Yes.
future. We're gonna have it be SplitScreen at Kotaku.com? Is that what we're gonna use?
Yeah, that'll be the email address. So you can
Okay,
send
so
questions to
if
that.
you want to send us questions for the podcast, send them to SplitScreen at Kotaku.com.
You can also angrily ask us questions on Twitter, like
Sure.
just barrage us with questions
Yeah.
on Twitter, like just
It's the
fill our
best way to
feed
do
with
it.
angry questions. That would be
Right.
really
Yes,
awesome.
and add hashtag Gamergate if
Right,
you
please,
really want
please do that,
to
please.
treat us.
We would love
Um,
that.
So the final question we will be answering today is from Kotaku reader Soul, who asks, Roach or D-Horse?
Man, question for the ages. I feel like, man, it's going to be this question and then the question of the dogs at the end of the year between D-Dog and the dog from Fallout 4 and whatever other dogs, like, because there's also a dog in Mad Max, like the dogs and the horses of 2015. But okay, well, let's stick to the question at hand. So D-Horse or Roach? All right, this is a tough one. So D-Horse is a better horse, right? Like I feel like D-Horse is like more functional. D-Horse is kind of easier to ride. D-Horse doesn't do ridiculous shit like Roach does. But Roach is Roach. Like Roach
Well,
has
hold on, but Roach isn't just one horse, right? Roach can be the name of any horse.
Well, I think that in The Witcher 3, so the lore goes, this is a thing that I didn't know, that Roach is usually a mare or a female horse.
Okay.
And so Geralt has had a lot of horses over the years, and he always names them Roach. There's one mission in the game where he talks about that. It's where you do the horse race with
They're
that rich
all
guy.
just called Roach.
And he's like, well, I just don't, because and it's a translation thing too. It means a fish. The actual word in Polish is a different word that I'm forgetting right now, but it's, it's
Okay.
not that. So he calls the horse Roach, but I think that in the game it is just one horse. And I think it's a she. Like, I think that's a safe bet, even though it's not clear. Like, and they said he generally preferred mares, but that doesn't mean, maybe this Roach is a guy, but I think Roach is a she, so yeah. But this is just one horse. So it is Roach, that Roach from the game, versus D-Horse, who D-Horse is definitely also one horse. So I don't know. So that's the case. What's your answer? Which
I
one?
mean, D-Horse and Roach, they're effectively the same. They don't talk, they don't do anything, they're horses. So you really have to judge this based on how you can use them within the game. In The Witcher 3, you ride the horse, and sometimes it gets scared and runs off or whatever, and you can call it from anywhere. But in Metal Gear, you can make the horse poop. You can have the horse, you can like literally Fulton drop the horse onto your enemies and just have a flying horse drop down and smash people on the head. You can put the horse on various things. You can use the horse in gameplay in a way that you can't do with Roach. So I think D-Horse is the clear winner.
Well, so I think I see your argument, but I'm going to argue for Roach here for a minute because Roach is very charming in a way that D-Horse is not. D-Horse is very functional. You can also stealth on D-Horse, which is like weirdly effective, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Just leaning on the side of the horse.
And man, and that calling in D-Horse on top of a guy is a great idea. I need to do that. I haven't done that yet. But Roach has this certain thing. I think you talked about how you wanted someone to mod the game so that Roach was replaced with a giant golden retriever. Because when you call Roach, there's something so amazing about Roach's big, stupid, like running up or like appearing in some really improbable place, like like on a cliffside or something.
And the
it's
saddlebags
just like,
with like a monster.
Hi, I'm Roach. and I find that really charming. So it's a tough call, but I'm actually going to give it to Roach, I think. Also because I've stopped using D-Horse in Metal Gear. I use Quiet and D-Dog for everything.
Counterpoint, Kirk.
So, I
Counterpoint.
maxed out my social link with D-Horse and moved on.
Your social link? This isn't Persona.
Yeah, it is. I thought that's how it worked. You unlock
counterpoint.
You unlock higher
D-Horse.
personas for your buddies. It's pretty much Persona, right?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. My
Counterpoint.
mistake then.
D-Horse can poop.
True. Well, maybe Roach poops too. You just don't have to see it, and you can't You can't do it. It does not poop
So
on
what's
command.
the point?
That's true. I
Like,
guess.
what
That's
is
true.
the point of
D-Dog
horse
also
poop
pees.
if
Have you
you're
noticed
not
that
gonna use
D-Dog
it?
pees? There's kind of a lot of like animal excrement happening in Metal Gear 5.
Which is very, very Kojima, very Metal Gear.
Very Metal Gear. Well,
But
I guess
yeah, I
that
think
seems like
wins it by a long
a good note to end things on.
Yeah, so
Horse poop?
so thank you everyone for watching our inaugural episode of Split Screen. We'll be back right here, so subscribe to get more episodes probably every couple of weeks, right? Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And feel free to contact us, email us, or tweet at us if you have any thoughts, feedback, suggestions, questions, yells about the way we look, comments on our tones of voices, and
really
how we talk.
anything you want to talk about, really.
Yeah,
anything you want to talk about.
If you got it, send it our way. All right.
You can hit us with.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool, thanks.